Well, they would have some training, but not in the way we think. They, they would say, well, here's, pillows, you can do this or that. They did assist the doctors in their stuff, but it was all on the job training. The actual first nursing school did not come about until after the Civil War. It was at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, and it was run by women who had been nurses during the Civil War. So now you want to see my clothes? They always do. So first I have stockings, and then I have what's called drawers, which are like long underpants. And then I have a chemise that starts at my shoulder and goes all the way down. And then I have my corset. And then I have an under the hoop petticoat. And then I have my over the hoop petticoat, which should have hoops on, but they're over there. And then I have my dress. So I have basically 7 layers of clothing. Yes, so we're thankful for the clouds today.
And that's what they would have wore in July too?
Well, Miss Dix, rather, her criteria for being one of her nurses was that you could not wear hoops. You had to be over 30, basically ugly, and be unattached to someone. But the hoops are not, they were tossed pretty easily because but I will say that when you do have a hoop on, you get more airflow. So there are pros and cons to both sides of it. But primarily here on the ground, they did not wear hoops.
They're all the other layers.
Yes, all the other layers. And it's funny because we do this quite often, and when we get somewhere where we're wearing clothes like you, we're like, oh, you feel undressed, You feel like you need something else on. So, okay, well,
Thanks a lot.
have a great time.
Appreciate it.
Sure, come on. You're going to put your hat on, and I'm going to put my hat on. And you would get things like mittens. Now, this...
Amish women did that for them.
No, actually, at that time, most other women knew how to make wristers.
Yeah, but the Amish did them because they didn't believe in fighting, but they wanted to keep the soldiers warm. So they got them full mittens.
Yeah, this kind. They were called Quaker mittens.
Without the gun trigger, huh?
Exactly. You can't. And they were pacifists. These are trigger finger mittens, which you can supposedly shoot a gun with those. I'm not sure I could, but
That was
gives you a little bit. But that's also why in the winter time the troops went into winter encampment. Very few. I don't think there are any.
Early in the war they do. Later in the war they stay.
Yeah.
Like Fredericksburg and
Well, that's true. That was in
Franklin and
December.
Nashville, and I mean they're fighting in the winter.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
So if your mom was paying $100 for each one of those, that would be a lot of money. Yeah. Luckily, Domino's came.
No, 50, 60 books about. He must have been there. No. No, he never been there in the Wild West. He just read about himself and wrote all these books. All these books. And our most famous author in the country.
Yes.
That always brings it. How you folks doing? Come on in, come on in. I've been in the sun all day. I might smell bad, but I never bite.
Ask him what that is.
Honest.
He's lying.
Aha.
Ask him what that is.
That's what that is.
Welcome to Company E of the 20th Maine, such as it is. Your first time on the field? No? Oh, well, welcome back. Welcome back.
And you know what?
You brought a fine recruiting age one for me. You ready to sign up? $13 a month, all the hardtack you can eat. Fine wool uniform, everything. 3 layers deep wool from head to toe.
Yeah, you need think you could man you up a little bit.
That's it. Let me give you your physical. Smile. You're in. You have to have 2 teeth, 1 top, 1 bottom. That's so you can load the weapons.
And if you didn't have it, where did you go?
The Navy.
Oh.
That's
I'm
it.
wondering what your instrument is.
Oh, that's a penny whistle or a tin whistle. There were no radios, there were no cell phones, there were no music. If you wanted music in the camp, you had to play it yourself. And it's a lot easier to get this into a haversack than a grand piano. It really is. Very seldom see a marching grand piano band. So,
It's kind of like a recorder.
kind of, few less holes.
Yeah.
No, the music was very important. Today, military music is pretty much ceremonial. Military music back then was incredibly important. It was part of your communications. It didn't just keep time on the march. That's important. But the most important thing was it was part of your communications. Every single order that could be given by word of mouth had a fife, a drum, or a bugle call that went along with it. Those instruments weren't chosen at random. That high shrill note of a fife, that low beat of a drum, and that clear brass ring of a bugle, it cuts through the din of battle. We'll go out on a large reenactments. We'll have 20, 30,000 guys out on the field. I can stand in line next to my fellows and shout at them. They can't hear me. Half a mile away, you can hear a fife. So the musicians would stay with the officers would give the orders, they would play the proper calls, and even if the officer couldn't be heard, they could hear the music and they would know what to do. So the musicians were very important back in those days. They could also relay a message. Imagine yourself, you are a brigade commander here at Gettysburg. The lines here at Gettysburg stretch 11 miles from end to end. So let's say General Meade is down there, he's over by Culp's Hill somewhere, and he looks through his binoculars down at the round tops, and he sees Vincent's brigade, the last brigade off on the left, and they're not in the right place. He wants them to move up. How's he going to tell them? How long does it take you to walk 11 miles? You can say, hey, tell Vincent's brigade to move forward. Yeah. It's going to take you all day to march 11 miles, and then go, hey, the boss wants you to move up. Even a man on a horse is going to take a couple of hours to gallop 11 miles and tell these men to move up. Every brigade had their own call. So the musicians down there would play the call for Vincent's brigade, forward march. The next band would play Vincent's brigade, forward march. The next band would play Vincent's brigade, forward march. That could be relayed down the battlefield in a minute. So the musicians were very, very important back in those days. They weren't just ceremonial back then. So that's what the drummer boys were doing, the fifers, things like that. So you sit there and go, oh, well, yeah, they had these young boys playing musical instruments. Guess what? Who's the first target?
You, the music boys.
If you shoot me,
So they can't communicate.
you take 1 rifle out of 100,000 out of the fight. If I shoot you, the drummer boy, nobody knows what to do. So you take out the communications first.
Yep.
So the musicians were prime targets.
There's a book entitled Flames Across the Susquehannock
Uh-huh.
about the burning of the Wrightsville Bridge. And it all starts out with a young boy that wants to go into the Army. He's a drummer.
Yep.
And his parents said, no, your brother's in the Army. We're not sending you in the Army. A few days later, they get a letter from his brother saying, we would have all been slaughtered today had it not been for our valiant drummer boy who sounded the call.
Yeah.
And the boy goes, okay, Mom and Dad, drummer boy saved brother, let me go.
Yep. Yeah, musicians were very important. So please come on into camp, look around. This is the kind of encampment you would have seen here at Gettysburg. It was a meeting engagement. Wasn't a formal camp, so you wouldn't have seen the nice, straight regimental streets with a color line and brigade streets and things like that. The men were simply grabbing their shelter hats, plopping on the ground, get a couple hours of sleep, and then go back to fight. So this is the kind of thing you'd have seen, just scattered tents all over the place, and away you go.
I guess Mr. Chamberlain isn't with you?
Not today. Not today. How you folks doing? Oh, don't let the cook see them. There's not a lot of meat on them, but you get 4 drumsticks. They stew up nicely. And those are our primary weapons there. Those are Enfield and Springfield rifles. They're all 58 caliber, and if you're here around noon, we'll be going across the street, we'll be firing them. Now a good rifleman with those could get off 3 shots a minute, so you can reload that every 20 seconds. Took 9 steps to load and fire. If you get any of those steps out of order or you do it wrong, it goes click instead of bang, and you now have a 12-pound club in a gunfight, and that's not going to end well for you.
I'd rather this than my flintlock.
Yeah. Yeah. Flinters are hard. You get as many misfires as fires with those.
A lot on dude. You know?
Still want to do it during a rainy day.
Yeah. Unlike earlier wars, these are percussion locked. Yeah. They almost always fire. I mean, that percussion cap's going to go off every time. So very rugged, very reliable weapons. Unlike the old flinters that were smoothbore, those had a range on them of about 75 yards, basically here to the road. If you were beyond that, I'd be hard pressed to hit you with the old flintlocks. Yeah. These are rifled, just like a modern weapon. It has a maximum range of about 1,000 yards, half a mile, and it has an effective range of 300 yards. Now we've pasted out that round monument over there from New York. That's 300 yards away. So if you go stand in front of that monument, I will hit you every time with this rifle. So it has quite a range on it. And at half a mile away, you start stepping out of the woods, men start dropping. At 300 yards, I can't miss you. So that's one of the reasons that the casualties were such huge proportions during the American Civil War. The weapons had gotten much, much better.
But the tactics hadn't changed.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, the tactics had fallen
Still
behind.
coaching you in a line,
Yep.
shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
Well,
Although this was one of the last of the big stand-up fights. By 1863, they were learning that standing up and blazing away at each other in the middle of an open field was no longer a viable tactic. After Gettysburg, almost every time the two armies would run into each other, they'd go to ground and start digging. And by the end of the war, it had turned into trench warfare, just like World War I.
That's how wars progress, with the observers seeing it.
It's pretty organized too, right? Kind of organized.
Oh, absolutely was.
Yeah, I mean they had to let each other know where they were going to be. Pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Communication, just like you were saying, was done through musicians and flags, positioning units. But prior to that, it was mass confusion.
sure.
Well, that's where Meade got in trouble here. He had a contingency plan. They didn't do that then.
Yeah.
You get driven from the field, you go where you go, and then we'll try and gather you up. He said if we're driven from this site, we'll go to Pipes Creek.
That's right.
And
Had
this
to
guy
back up.
Sickles accused him of treason and wanting to avoid a fight.
That's where he was actually hoping the battle would take place.
Yeah.
It was much better ground than here.
Yeah, he was ready to go there until Reynolds said this is the place to fight.
Yeah.
Everybody had one?
That fatigue color revolves carrying kinetic energy. So you know, even at a slow pace, like you were saying, at 500 yards, it hits you, it's still going.
It's still moving. Yeah.
Not a lot of like expansion, but it's still putting a big hole through.
It changed ballistics totally.
Sure.
With that rifling coming out with the spin, which makes it
That was a
accurate.
Chronicle, right? That's a Chronicle bullet, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The Chronicles, yeah.
With not grooves, but ridges on it.
So it would expand.
Exactly. Into the grooves come out. It's like when you throw a football, it spins.
Right.
You get more accuracy.
Right.
Back when they had the old, musket,
Sure.
the ball would come out. It's a round ball coming out of a pipe, and it just goes anywhere.
anywhere.
That's why
Right.
Napoleonic tactics, where you two armies line across and you hope you hit somebody.
Sure.
Whoever's left standing wins.
Right. Yeah.
Understood
Or
that.
whoever withdraws, sure, the others win.
Yeah, the Chronicle board, that changed a lot.
It did.
A lot.
Yeah, there was a French major named Binet that designed it.
The pin on your shirt, that symbolizes your Masonic.
Yes, and I just happen to be. Yeah, but this is prior to, they didn't have the G back then.
Yeah, 375 calls.
Number 7, Dover, Delaware.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've been since I was 22.
Oh, really?
As soon as this started, the Union answered for a while, and then the commanding officer of the Artillery said, wait, guys, they're not shooting here just for no reason. They're going to attack. So he told his men, save your ammo, pull your guns off the ridge, put them down in this low area. They're safe. Confederates can't see them, can't aim. Whatever the Confederates are shooting, it's going to hit the front of this ridge, not the low area behind it. But Robert E. Lee, looking through his binoculars that morning, all he could see was the Union artillery bringing their horses up, limbering up, and dragging the guns away. So in his mind, he's driving off the Union artillery, but he wasn't. They were just moving back. So he thought the Union artillery was being driven off, so he says, okay, now's the time. Send in the infantry. They stepped out of the woods 1.5 miles away, and the Union gunners went, bring them up, brought the guns right back up to the top of the hill, and started bombarding. So the Confederates made that 1 mile to 1.5 miles through that open field under constant artillery bombardment the whole way. The real slaughter out here on Pickett's Charge Field took place out on the road that you see. If you go up on the crest, you look out, there's a road. It's about 200 yards out. And it has a fence on either side of the road. It's exactly the way the road was 160 years ago. So the Confederates come out there, 16 to 17,000 men marching shoulder to shoulder, this huge army. The Union men said it was the most beautiful display they'd ever seen, flags flying, everything going. But they got to that road and they had to stop, break ranks, tear down the fence, step across the road, stop, break ranks, tear down the fence. It only took a couple of minutes. But for a couple of minutes, the whole Confederate army was standing dead still at 200 yards. That's exactly the effective range of that weapon. It's also where the artillery is going to switch over from explosive shell to what they call canister. A canister is a big, tall can. It's about that big, and it's filled with iron balls. When you fire the cannon, it turns the cannon into the world's biggest shotgun. And at that kind of range, it quite literally tears men to shreds. So for several minutes, the whole Confederate army was exactly at the range where they were firing canister, and these weapons were most effective. So that's where most of the slaughter was, right out at the road. They only penetrated the Union line right up by that copse of trees over there by the obelisk. One small group of Confederates managed to break through. The Union, however, did have reserves back down along the road behind us. As soon as they broke through, they brought up the reserves, pushed them back out, and sent the Confederates scampering back across the way. They lost about half the men who made that charge were down on the field that day. And that was the end of the battle. Robert E. Lee wanted to make a second charge, but he met General Pickett coming back across the field. He said, rally your men. You must rally your division. We'll make another attack. And he said, General Lee, I have no division. Of all the regimental commanders that made the fight for the Confederates, every single one of them was down. Of the brigade commanders, every single one of them was dead. Of the company officers, almost all of them were dead. So what you had was an army that now had no officers, no leadership. They were all dead. You had sergeants wandering around on the field that just got a brigadier battlefield commission, but it would be several days before you could find that sergeant and say, congratulations, you're a brigadier general, take the regiment, or take the brigade. So it was just mass confusion. General Pickett was not kidding when he said, sir, I have no division. All the officers were dead. So.
I read where the Yankees captured 28 rebel flags in the Pickett
I'm sure. I'm not sure how many it was, but it was quite a number. Quite a number.
Oh, yeah. The Indians.
Yeah, that's
So who's ready to sign up?
Been there, done that.
Yes. 23. Yes, sir. So please come on in, look around. These are the kind of camps you'd see. I said this was strictly a meeting engagement, no formal camps. The guys just break out their shoulder halves, sling it up, get a couple of hours of rest, and then go back to the slaughter.
You ever hear of the town of Gettysburg?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's closest.
Out west? No, that's right. You're up there all the time.
Gettysburg.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've run around, I run people all over the place. Today I found 5.
Yeah.
They were in Gettysburg.
How about that? Fort Necessity.
Yep.
Look up there and look at Braddock and stuff.
Whenever we were out with Israel,
General Braddock. Yeah, he was buried up there on the road. Well, he's moved now. Washington buried him on the road.
Charge card. Throw the powder in, push the ball out of the paper, start it with your thumb, grab a hold of your rammer. Draw a rammer. Ram cartridge. Return rammer. Very important step. I'm not kidding. Prime, come up, reach in your cartridge, your cap belt, take out a percussion cap, put it on the end of the cone, and then aim, fire, off you go, and then you start it all that over again. So that's what it takes to load and fire the weapon. A good man could do that 3 times a minute. So the boys would drill and drill and drill for hours a day just to get that down. Now you thought you were just going to get a history lesson. You get an English lesson too. We have some expressions we still use that come from what I just showed you. Remember that cartridge? It's just a paper tube. Got to tear it off. The expression we still use today that comes from that cartridge is an admonition to a coward. If you get into a tight spot, you can't run away, you can't maneuver, you can't talk yourself out of it. If all you can do is fight, well, son, you'd better just stand up and bite the bullet. Get in there and bite the bullet. It means don't hold back. Get in there and fight. The other one that comes from these weapons and this loading procedure is the weapon itself. There's no safety on this weapon. Modern weapon will have a safety lever. You throw it, it won't fire. This doesn't have anything like that. But what it has is 2 positions on a hammer. You bring it back to that first notch, it won't go off. When the officer says aim, as you're bringing the rifle up, you bring it all the way back. Now, it'll fire. If you go through all that work, all those steps, all those motions, and you forget that last little thing, well, you know what you did? Well, you darn fool, you just went off half-cocked. That's where that expression comes from. So all these things we still say today comes from these weapons, this era of fighting. You're going to see when we go out there at noon, we go out on the field to fight, we're fighting in 2 ranks, a front rank and a rear rank. It's just the soldiers. The sergeants won't be in the firing line, the officers won't be in the firing line, it's just the common soldiers. So we still use the expression today if you're having union negotiations. Oh, when we're in that formation, you have a front rank and a rear rank. Each group, one front rank man and a rear rank man, is called a file. So if you have your company out there today and you're voting on a union, or you're voting for a new contract or whatever, who does the voting? The rank and file, the common soldiers, the common worker. So that's another expression that comes from this era we still use. So who's ready to sign up? Yes, look at this. Yes, I want to sign up, Sergeant. Send me in. We are going to shoot these weapons, yes. Yes, we are. No bullets, just blanks today.
Rangers get upset if you shoot.
Oh, they get very upset if we shoot tourists. That's right.
Can I hold that?
All right, ready?
I have to keep one hand on this for park regulations, but I can let you feel the weight.
Whoa.
It's 12 pounds. Now wait, you don't just carry this. You have to carry all your leather gear, full haversack, 3 days worth of food, 5 pounds worth of ammunition there, 40 rounds worth of ammunition, and then you're going to have 45 pounds in your pack that you're going to carry on your back. So all in all, about 85 pounds when you're on the march that you're going to be carrying around.
Nice wool underwear.
So come on into the camp, take a look around. If you have any questions, ask away. That's why we're here. And as I say, we're going to be going out at noon, right across the road, and we'll be firing these weapons so you have a chance to see what they sound like. Lots of smoke, lots of noise.
We'll walk through the camp and then we'll head back.
Here we go.
Places, everyone. Places. Back to one.
Bring you here. Capital, make it grass. Pull it into the lap. Come here, Adam. Yeah. I know. When there's one left, you can get it. But if you have 100 in there, you can't get any of it. Okay. I see it. Ready. All right. Take arms. Sorry, Wayne. Okay. Unfix. Bayonet. We all need it. Soup on the fire. Somehow out of this we got taped to the package. Attention detail.
Over. Arm. In 2 ranks. Right.
Right.
Face. By file left. March.
1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1,
By file left. March.
1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
Right shoulder. Chest. Arm.
Second of 1863 that a little over 300, around 300 Minnesota men charged out in this field out to where you see that swell in front of you. Okay. In the 15 minutes in which it took to conduct that charge, they suffered one of the highest casualty rates of any regiment in the entire war, with 82% casualties in the field in front of them.
Countermarch, 5 miles left.
But here's what happened. They halted an entire Confederate division.
Yes. And you talk about the gall, the general that sent them in, a guy by the name of General Hancock, stood in front of these old men in a reunion after the war. And he was, of course, old too. And he stood in front of those old soldiers, and he told them there, then and there, that if he had to do it all over again, he'd order them to charge once more. You can imagine the gall of such things. So we've got a real special treat for you here today. Are we 20th Maine or Vincent's Brigade?
The answer is yes.
Oh, okay. So they are portraying today Vincent's Brigade of Union soldiers who would have been defending Little Round Top at the time, which is that knoll on the left, Big Round Top being on the right. They're going to give you a demonstration about how the soldiers would have been fighting back in the day. Before they do that though, my good friend, I am pleased to introduce the park's newest volunteer. My good friend Dexter here is about to give you what we call the MPS safety message.
Okay. So,
Loud and clear.
stay behind this line at all times. This is your invisible barrier.
Tell them how the government paid X amount of dollars to keep them safe from harm. This is the wall that you've heard about. We just moved it from the Texas border here to Pennsylvania, okay?
I also
want my money back.
Does the government ever give you your money back?
On the roller coaster, go ahead.
I also consider covering your ears if you're sensitive to loud noises, because it will be loud.
Okay. Extremely small children, if you've got them hearing aids, you need to watch those. Okay?
Yeah, especially hearing aids.
Pets also. All right. Anything else? I've never seen foamy water before there, Dexter.
I got in there. Good job, Dan.
Ladies and gentlemen, how about a round of applause?
Very
for
nice
these
job, man.
volunteers?
Very nice job, man.
Dexter is one of our youngest members, obviously. As Matt said, we are members of Vincent's Brigade. I, when I'm reenacting, portray an officer of the 2nd United States Regulars. Most of the men behind me are Company E of the 20th Maine. And you may have heard about some Colonel, what was his name? Chamber something. Really smart guy. He was not a professional soldier, but he knew what to do, all right? What we're going to demonstrate today is the simple, basic, how we taught soldiers to load a rifle. if you've seen Civil War movies done in the 30s and 40s and you see a gaggle of men charging across the field, whooping and hollering, that didn't happen, okay? You have to install military discipline. So the first thing you have to do is teach men who have never fired a rifle and some who have hunted with rifles the military way, all right? So we're going to demonstrate the loading in 9 times. So there are 9 steps to loading an Enfield or a Springfield rifle.
Attention, coming. Shoulder, arms. Prepare to load 9 count. 1, load.
They're going to simulate loading. They're not actually going to load this time. Mind anyone's way so you can see?
Handle, cartridge. Tear, cartridge. Charge, cartridge. Draw, rammer. Ram, cartridge. Return, rammer. Prime.
Those are the 9 steps.
Shoulder, arms.
Write them about and load. Those are the 9 steps. Now, obviously,
Left wheel.
that took some time, correct?
Yeah.
All right?
March.
Obviously, under fire,
1,
we're not going to do that. But that's how you were taught to load with your comrades, because the one thing that you notice the difference in military tactics then than now, the men are grouped together. Why? They are grouped together for one simple reason. You want to concentrate your fire on the enemy, because these rifles fire 1 round at a time. Okay, 1 shot. So you want to put the most lead downfield to your enemy. And if we stop to do those 9 steps while those other people on the other side, we'd all be dead. But you instill muscle memory. You just do it. You just wind up doing it. All right? So, PJ, throw me around. You have a round? No, I do not. So, this is filled with black powder. The only thing missing from this that was an original round is the mini ball that would be posted here. So if you noticed when they were going through the steps, they tore the tail with their teeth, poured it down, and they would push the bullet, the mini ball, with their thumb and then use the round. But without this tiny little device, a percussion cap, that's a 10-pound club. So inside is the chemical called fulminate of mercury. And the action of the hammer hitting the top of this percussion cap creates a spark that runs down the cone, that runs inside a hole that's in the breech, explodes the power, fires the bullet. Mr. Young?
Company. Aim! Fire! Load!
All right, that's 8 men. Wasn't that loud to my ear, but I'm sure to some of you, you jumped, all right? Interpolate that out. A full company is 100 men. A full regiment is 1,000. 2 regiments make a division. 2 divisions make a corps. 2 or more corps make an army. All right, that's just infantry. That's not counting artillery fire, all right? So that is now you've fired all your men at once and you've put your lead downfield. What's wrong with that?
Well, they're sitting down.
Now we're waiting.
Gotta reload.
Exactly. Now they are called targets.
Somebody else has to shoot.
All right. So what we're going to demonstrate other methods of protecting your rank partner, which are the lines that run this way, and the files are the men front to back.
Rear rank. Aim! Fire!
Why do you fire the rear rank first?
Well, now the front fire.
Why do we fire the rear rank first?
To protect the men in front.
But if we fired the front rank first, what would the rear rank men be seeing right now?
Them falling.
You would see their ramrods going in front of their face. So that's why you always fire rear first. But the theory, what you said, to protect the other, yeah, that's the reason why.
Front right. Aim! Fire! Go!
All right, so that is firing by rank. The next that's going to be demonstrated is firing by file, where it starts from the left of the right of the line and goes down. So each man in a file fires together as it moves down. If there were enough men out here, it would almost sound like a machine gun. Okay? Yeah. After the firing by file was complete,
Firing by file to the right.
you would fire three independent rounds, but the sergeant may do just one just to demonstrate.
Fire. One independent.
Right down the line.
Right down the line. And by the time you got to about where Mr. Purdy is, the second sergeant, they would be loaded.
Start it over.
But you don't go down again. You fire your three independent rounds.
Okay.
All right? What's going to be demonstrated next is your enemy is not always directly in front of you. They may be to the right or to the left. So then you will be firing by what's called firing at the oblique. If the enemy
Detail.
is
Ceasefire.
no further away
Oh.
on an angle as that last car in line, that's fine. We can do that. If it was much further down, see where that monument is, that first monument, I would have to move the company. And that's fine, except there's one thing about moving a company. It takes time. And by the way, they're still shooting at you. All right? So all of these methods are to be done quickly, to protect yourself and to put as much firepower on the enemy as you can. Remember, wars are won by infantry, okay? Artillery is someone said, the great fireworks show, all right? Cavalry,
Fire!
someone said it's like a dressage with guns. Well, okay, you know, but all three parts of the army at that time were important. But this is what wins wars at that time, okay? Sergeant?
Right oblique. We'll fire a volley. Then we'll be in.
All right.
What's the distance that one can fire?
The effective range of this type of weapon. Now these are rifles. These are
Somebody by
not-
the right oblique.
During the
Aim!
Revolution, they were predominantly.
Fire!
The effective range was about 150 yards. This effective range is about 300 to 500. Okay. The effective range of those cannon right there is a mile. But there's one problem with artillery at the time. You have to see your enemy. Okay? They have to be within your sight so you can adjust your fire. Left, right, up, down to hit your target. Okay? They're important. Don't get me wrong. They're important. No crying. There's no crying in the army.
Somebody. Aim! Fire! Recover. Fire.
That's what you want to hear.
Fire.
You want to hear the rifles firing as one. Okay? You don't want a scattering, ragged fire.
25.
What they're doing now is simply for safety. They're going to cap off to make sure all the rifles fired, because we don't want to take our rifles back into the camp with black powder in them.
Elevated fire rate. Aim! Fire! Cover. Fire. Shoulder. Fire.
Yeah, make sure it's clean to go.
Somebody. Forward. Fire. One.
Earlier this morning when we did our first demonstration, there was no breeze.
Left field.
And so the gun smoke hung in the air about right here. All right? Now, that was 8. Again, interpolate that, and if you've heard,
Bayonets!
now they're just showing off.
Detail! Halt!
I'm scared. How about you? But the term fog of war comes from the gun smoke that you can't see your enemy. And earlier this morning, when it was humid, that's the weather it was here all those 3 days. All right. Son, don't.
You have a drinking problem?
Just wash your feet. Can't do a thing with them, right?
Well done.
All right. Any other questions? All right, we're going to go back to the camp. If you want to get up close and personal, just remember we have fed them. They won't bite now.
Company, present arms! Shoulder, arms! 2 ranks, right, face! Forward, guard. 1, 1, 1.
Yes, sir. Great question. That is a great question. Because during battle, auditory commands could not be heard. I could be standing right behind my company, yelling commands, they couldn't hear it. But they can feel the beat of a drum. They can feel the vibration. They can hear a fife because it's that high shrill. So commands were done by fife and drum, and during the battle you could hear, and they were trained to do that, and we have done that at times, and it's pretty impressive. Normally now I play either a company officer or a colonel. So as a colonel, if I'm standing there, my men would be about a third of the way in that field. I would be that far behind the line. So there would be lesser ranks of officers or non-commissioned officers that would relay the command. Or the band is standing right in front of me and I give the command to tell them what to do. I can move them in by drum and fife. I can make them fire by drum and fife. But obviously, we don't have that out here. It's pretty impressive to see.
Are the drummers
The
are
drummers, yeah.
not armed? Are they out of the purview of the warden, or?
No, they're right in front of me. They're behind the battle lines, but as colonel, they're either off my side or in front of me.
I mean, the enemies, the opposition, do they shoot those unarmed drummers?
Are they wearing the blue uniform?
Yes.
That's the answer, yes. You know, when the drummer boys and the fifers' job is done, you know what they become? They become hospital stewards to take men to the hospital that's to the rear, which is, there are some markings back along Baltimore Pike of some of the houses that were used as field hospitals. Exactly right.
This little boy's had a question.
Yes, yes, sir.
Oh.
Really? You really want to see it? How much would you pay me? All right.
Wow,
All
a lot of
right.
money back then.
Come on up. Now I can't let you take it because the park would beat me up, shave my head, and put me in the army. But this is a reproduction sword. This is not an original, but it is made as the originals were made. Yes, it would have had all that scroll work on it. Okay? What's the purpose of this? To protect my hand, exactly right. All right? Now, you see this line right there? You can see that? That's so it doesn't get stuck in somebody.
What was that?
When I do this, in somebody's body, it comes out easy.
Let me see. I want to see that.
Out. What's that? Can I cut the rope? I can, but I won't.
What was that again? That so it didn't get stuck on anybody?
See that?
Oh, all right. When I was in the army,
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
How did because I know black powder typically doesn't like moist or wet environments? How do they fight in humid or wet weather?
That's the advantage of having that percussion cap and not a flint.
I know that was a problem, but I also know that sometimes even the